Okay, perfect. All right, so Mishnah Berura 271, subsection 9. Tzorich shetiya mapa ala shulchan tachas hapas. It's a requirement that there should be a cloth on the table under the bread. Umapa acheres perusa al gabav, and another cloth like spread out over it. Mishna Berura Mem Aleph. Matur b'shem Yerushalmi shelo yira pas boshti. So in the Tur it gives the reason in the name of the Talmud Yerushalmi that the bread should not see its embarrassment. What does that mean? That you're not making kiddush on the bread, but rather you're making it on the wine. Where the bread precedes the wine in other places, meaning the bread is a higher ranking bracha. You get to hamaitzi, and it comes from when you have the higher the rank of the bracha, it also comes first. So generally, hamaitzi comes before a hagafen, and here you're making the bayir pri hagafen on the wine before the bread. So you're covering it over, so it's covered while you're making the lower ranking bracha, so it shouldn't see its embarrassment. But according to a different reason that the Tur wrote, that it's remembrance of the mun of the manna, the bread that used to fall, that was put in a box, basically. Tal l'maylo v'tal l'mata, dew on top of it and dew underneath it. Mimela gam b'mekadish alapas sarah l'chasis b'mapa. So automatically also when we're making kiddush on the bread. Meaning, according to this reason, so he brings two reasons. The first reason, he says it shouldn't see its embarrassment, which means where the wine is there. However, according to the second reason, that it's Zecher Lamon, then you would also cover it even when it's even if you're making kiddush on bread, even if you don't have wine and you're not making a guffin, you would still cover the bread in this case,
because it's not about being embarrassed in front of the grape juice, it's about the mun thing,
right?
So, and that's taka the practice. It's very interesting because most times when people you see around today's day and age, when people ask, when it's children or people who are not familiar with Shabbos minhagim come to people's tables and ask why is the challah covered during kiddush, they say the former, the first reasoning. But really, the main reasoning, according to the Torah and everything, is that it's really because of the mun. So,
right,
it's important, educational.
So now, it sounds like from the Pri Megadim, that according to all the reasons, it is enough if you keep it covered till after you're done making kiddush. When you're making kiddush on the wine,
I guess, as opposed to waiting until you actually make kamaitzi,
right? Which would
you could take the cover off right after kiddush. You don't. It doesn't have to wait till after you washed and
right. So I guess
down and everyone's ready to make kamaitzi quickly.
So I guess the Pri Megadim reads it as regardless of the reason. Both reasons, the idea is having it covered during kiddush. So meaning whether you're making kiddush on. So let's say even you go according to the reason of mun.
Because of the mun, you might think, okay, so then it should have the underneath and on top for as long as possible.
Right,
as much as possible. It's not do with kiddush even.
Through its own bracha, through when you're going to make the bracha on the actual ametzi. But rather he reads it as no. When you're making kiddush, you have to keep it covered, whether you're making the kiddush on the bread or you're making kiddush
and it doesn't right. And either way, even if
the other reason, if according to the first reason, if you were making kiddush on the bread, you wouldn't have to cover it whatsoever at all for anything.
At all, yeah,
right,
at all, even before kiddush.
Would be a nafkamina.
Right. This chiddush is only regards to if you're not making if you're not making is according to the man reason.
Right. V'chein b'shachris, and so too in the daytime, you have to keep the bread covered until after kiddush from these reasons. Which is interesting because you would think he would first introduce Yikar the Shabbos. So maybe I guess he did before, but
why?
Because there's a third reason but the third reason applies only at night and not in the day, and it applies to all foods on the table, not just the challah. He says here in the Chartzian, Ein b'magen Avram delatam teisi suda dai adachar kiddush. So that's the third thing, is teisi suda. Anyway, so which is the whole time that because yain she mechuse ad the chiddush became shachos all these. Yeah, okay. Ubchai adam mashma delatam zeichel lamon toiv she mechuse adachar b'chas hameitzi. So the chai adam it sounds like he holds it should be covered until after the bracha of hameitzi.
Meaning you should make hameitzi underneath the mappa.
Yeah. Possible Yirabu Derechayim. It's written in Eliyab Derechayim Shkish Mekadish ala Pas Yaniach Yodov al Hamapa Ve'al Halechem Mishna B'Shas HaKiddush. In Eliyab and Derechayim it says that when you make Kiddush on the bread, you should put your hand on the cloth and on the bread, on the two breads when you're making the Kiddush. When you get to Hameitzi, Yigala HaLechem Mishna. He should reveal the Lechem Mishna, meaning open the cloth on top a little bit. V'yaniach yodi aleihem, and put his hands on them. V'yivorich Hameitzi, and make Hameitzi. Shigil LaHashem, when it comes to Hashem's name, Yagbia Shneim L'mayla Ad Shigman Hashem V'achkachenichim. So he picks them up until he finishes the name, and then he puts them down. And after he finishes the bracha hameitzi, he should cover it again with the cloth, and put his hand on them until he finishes kiddush. So that's the seder that he brings down there for when you're making kiddush on bread. Okay. Yud Mechaber Mekadish al Case Mali Yayin Shaloi Yihye Pagum. He makes kiddush on a complete cup of wine. It should not be pagum is like missing. V'ta'un kol ma sheta'un case shel birchas hamazon. And all the same requirements that there are for benching, for the cup that's used for benching, are also required here. V'aymer vayechulu mu'umad, and he says vayechulu standing up. V'achar kach aymer beir pi hagafen, and then he says beir pi hagafen, v'achar kach kiddush, and after this kiddush. So that's the seder. Let's see in the Mishna Berura. Let's go to the Mishna Berura. Membase. The case al case moli. The case shall kiddush v'havdalah hu bichlal she'ar case shel bracha. That the cup both of kiddush and havdalah are included in the in all the other case shel bracha, cup of blessings. The tzarich shiamali, that any time you have this cup of wine in this category of a cup of blessings, it needs to be full. And like before in 183 subsection 2 in the Rambam, the im ein molde, the ein like case acher, and if it's not full and he does not have another cup, he doesn't have another cup to add into it, like to pour into it, then he is permitted to make kiddush on it. Kevon sheyesh shiur revius b'hayayim b'seifi. So long as there is a revius, which depending on the, I think by us we go about approximately 3.5 ounces. But I assume if you don't have the wine, you could probably even go by a more b'diavad shear, as opposed to better to do it on a more b'diavad shear than not to make kiddush on wine, I would imagine. But it does range anywhere from like 3 to 5. From 3 to 5.
Chazanish is 5.1 ounces.
Yeah.
Ramesha Feinstein, for example, says between 3 and 4.4. I think the Shulchan is I don't know why I'm thinking 3.7. I'm pretty sure that's somebody else. Second, I have it right here. There's even some that say so 2. I think the minimum is 2.92. Abraham Chaim no, sure, Torah, excuse me, says the Alter Rebbe says that the minimum would actually be 2.92 fluid ounces, and Shir of Chaim no, other place game is 2.73.
Right, so it goes
4, 3.34, 3.67, 3.9, 9945. Okay, 507. It's usually the Chazanish. The other place can even say it's 5.68. Okay, but basically, I think Lamaisa, is basically the general thing is 86 milliliters, which is 2.9 fluid ounces, so about 3.
All right, so at the very least,
though many are are machmir to have like 100, which is 3.3, so a little more than 3, but yeah, at the least, technically there are people who say less, who say 2.7 fluid ounces, but I think I don't know. I mean, a lot of people try, I think, hit a middle ground of like 4, basically going between 3 and 5. They go 4 fluid ounces, you're covered. Like, it seems to be like the general thing that I've always seen people with cups and stuff go. I know my brother-in-law made a Kiddush cup at his Chabad house, especially with students who end up saying along with the rabbi as he makes Kiddush.
Right.
It's not so clear that they're going to be yetz to his Kiddush. So he makes the cups, he makes the shot glasses. Let's say like Chabad of Vanderbilt University and stuff. He makes them a little larger. So that way the amount of wine they end up filling, even though they're not going to fill it to the tippy top, so like 3/4 full ends up being, more than 3 ounces. So that way the Yetzer Kiddush themselves, like having made Kiddush themselves.
It's interesting because that would go by what we're saying right here.
Yeah.
Is that if it's not full, but at the very least, if you put
because again, technically they're Yetzer his Kiddush and they're hearing Kiddush, but okay, if they're singing along and they're saying the words, and if they don't have kavanah, whatever, just to be extra careful, to be machmir, that I think that's fine. Like and even if they spoke, it's not necessarily a hefsek because they're speaking the words of Kiddush. They're having in mind to be Yetzer from the rabbi. They're singing along. Fine, it's not our minhag to do so, but it's I don't know that it's truly a hefsek thing. Whatever. Anyway.
Right.
Fine. But yeah, no, it's I think it's a nice thing. Yeah, I just remember that nakuda of like trying to make sure that because otherwise if you give them like regular shot glasses, even if the cup is maybe 3 ounces, but people don't fill cups all the way. Like saying unless you're
right.
Like we do. We know we Halachik, we fill cups all the way.
And in other words, look, even us, right? When else do we, besides for these situations of Keshel Bracha, When do we ever fill a cup up all the way? In fact, what's the classic the classic line when a kid fills up like soda almost to the tippy top of the cup? It's like, what are you making Havdalah? Or what are you making
Yeah, I
Kiddush?
was gonna say my son is very machmir because of kiddush. Every time he has he's gonna have some sort of grape juice or something, it has to be overflowing,
Yeah,
Tati.
yeah,
My
right.
3-year-old is a very machmir
Sprite,
chassid.
Sprite overflowing.
Overflowing, Tati. This is cough syrup. It's just purple and thick because it's cough syrup. It's not
Right.
actual grape juice. Tati, overflowing. Anyway, all right,
Okay.
cool.
So, um,
So
shall
mem gimel.
yeah, shaloya pagum, that it should not be missing. Hainosh im shosa echad mimano, meaning that if somebody drank from it, pegame, he made it lacking, made a pegam in it. Ve'ein lekadish alav, and you cannot make kiddush on it. So you see, pagum means more than just. It's not just. It's two ideas there. One is that there shouldn't be any missing; it should be filled all the way. But also, pagum is that nobody should have drink from it.
Well, no, the Mechaber says that's two separate things. He
Right.
says it should be a full cup of wine, and then he says it should not be pagum. And then as a third thing, he says,
Right,
and
but
must mean
the
so
way
that
he
Mechaber
says
said three.
Mekadesh al case malayayin shaloyi pogum. He makes it on a whole. But I guess automatically, if somebody drank from it, it's not going to be. How can it be a full cup of wine if somebody drank from it? If you didn't
Yeah.
refill it?
I think
So I guess in that sense, that's why they're tied together.
the way he's writing it. Yeah, but it's he's saying
Right.
someone drank
No,
from it.
but I mean, but it makes sense because think about it. If you have a full cup of wine, even full to
Right,
be top, and somebody drinks from it,
right,
it's not full. Okay, well, if you drank from it, it's not full anymore.
right.
Until you add back some more. Okay, but once you added more, it's not pugum anymore. So they then.
Well, no, because you're bringing up a point of what you see actually by minhagim of fruma yidden halacha keeping yidden around the world. Lubavitch, we're very machmir to make sure we fill all the way over the top, so that way the cup is definitely for sure full. But not everyone does that. Other people fill up to the top, but not mamish to the lip where it's going to spill over the moment you touch it.
Well, actually,
And let's say someone like that,
not
let's
just to all the way full. There's actually an Indian to taka overflow it even that
no,
it
I'm
should
saying our
sit
Indian is
down.
I'm saying we overflow it.
Yeah,
Mendel, that's what I'm saying. We overflow it. But the other people who don't overflow it, they're going to be careful not to overflow it because they don't want it to spill as they're picking up the cup. So you can
right.
imagine, you ever do that with your kids? They fill the water to a cup, so the kid leans in,
Yeah,
sips a little bit, so then
right.
it's just enough. It's still very full and it's still to the
Yeah.
top, but it's just like
But
a couple
it's
millimeters
not
down, so that
right.
it's not going to spill over when I pick it up. I
It
think
doesn't
that's
have
what
that skin on top that's holding the roundness of it above the cup.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I think what I was saying is I think that's exactly what the Mishnah Berura is trying to circumvent. He's saying, don't
Right,
do that. If you sip from it at the top, so
right,
that it doesn't spill over, whatever, you just made it pogum. Doesn't matter that it's filled still to the tippy top. Even you
right,
sipped from it, it's over, man. Game
right.
over. It's pogum.
Not only that, so ultimately the pugum part is even more important than the full part. Because we see
Yeah,
the
because
part, okay,
Lamaisa,
the
even if it
main
only
thing
has
is
a
you had it
revius, it doesn't even have to be
fine.
full.
Whereas pugum is more of a problem.
Right.
So, v'ayin shall be zayin the b'shas adchak she'ein le'kais acher ve'ein le'etzel atakin as a kais, and see over there in Seif
182.
7. Where was it?
Kufpebeis.
Yeah, okay,
Kufpebeis, he said, where pogum, the laws
right.
of pogum.
So see
So
there
now
in
Sif
7 that
Zion.
that in a time b'shas adchak, in a time of great need, meaning he's forced. He has no other options. At a time when
Right.
you're out of options.
It's Shabbos day in 770. What wine do you have? It's just a bunch of random cups that already made Kiddush on. You want to make Kiddush.
You gotta combine them.
You just finished davening and it's almost Shkia. Like you don't have time. You
know, right. You're out of options.
There's no time.
Yeah, you don't have another cup. The ain like eitzel atakin case, and he has no solution how to be able to fix the cup, right? Like meaning
there's no new wine that he could pour in.
Pour a little bit into, yeah.
Right. All he's got is used wine.
And by the way, it should be noted in such a situation because this is an important life hack for 770. is that when you're mixing five other people's wine together into your cup to make kiddush, and you happen to have found like a bottle of wine with this much in it, okay, pour that last, the part from the bottle, because I've seen this happen. Oh, perfect, and they'll pour the part from the bottle and then pour all the Pokemon into it. That's no good. You got to do the other way around. You put the Pokemon wine, and then you complete it to, overflow it a little bit in the top of in the bottle.
It's funny you mentioned that with a bottle. It reminded me, I actually asked the Shaila a long time ago. I don't remember who or what the situation was. I remember the question being raised of, so what if there's no bottle? But life hack, especially with Lubavitchers, the dish underneath the cup has all this wine that was not drunk from. It spills out of the cup. Mm. So whatever I heard, because I remember hearing there's some Kabbalistic inyanim that such wine, it's overspilled. So I remember, if I remember correctly, a Rav told me that, better to take that cup from the dish and use that to make an unpogum wine,
right,
than to be making it on unpogum wine,
right, or vice versa, to use from the bottle that's even though we generally are mocked to close all the bottles on the table, but let's face it, in 770 you're not the whole 770 is not closing their
actually the whole sugi of open bottle thing is actually much more
by zones,
Remember when I learned this a while ago. I'm not a mumche or anything, but I remember going into this, learning this a little bit ago about the open bottle thing. It's not as whatchamacallit as people think, because that's the whole thing about it's the Alter Rebbe gets into more about open bottles, closing bottles, because you don't want the wine to go bad, and not so much because like someone's that you're making kiddush on it or anything.
People sometimes mistake it because they go, oh, you get right when the bottle.
As if you made kiddush over that bottle of wine.
Say, oh, you're gonna make it pugum, and people confuse that sometimes. That the open bottle with the fact that somebody drank from it.
Right, but nowadays, like Lemaisa, first of all, no one's drinking from it. You're not making kiddush, and also today's wines, it actually is better if you leave it open to let it aerate. If it's a new bottle of wine, like. It's not going bad like you used to. So whatever. It's but it's a good point either way.
All the same, we do have there is a minhag to close the bottle.
Still absolutely.
But in other words, it's because the Alter Rebbe says that, regardless of whether his reasoning applies or not. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. So that's what we do. So.
Right. But in regards to this or whatever, making something not
to make it on the if you don't have other wine, then make kiddush on the bottle that was open is not is not a problem. Yeah, definitely a better way to do it. So then, he mainly eats the dog in the case, but Baruch in all case pogum. Vanish Avram Siv Kadon Lamed, the Bekiddush Shalayla Evshe Tevesi Kaddish Al Pas, and see in Eish Lavram that he holds that it's possible that during the night Kiddush, maybe it's taka better to make on if you have challah, it's better to make Kiddush on challah than to make it on pogum wine. That's how each Lavram holds.
I think we got to get into, or we already got into this. I think, or we're gonna get into over the whole sugya of how by Friday night, better to make kiddush on challah over wine versus Shabbos day. It's a little different, but
right, because it's the different chiyuv of the by night and by day, etc.
We got it before.
We just had that before.
We just had it. That's.
In what? Like Zion or
it was even earlier, like Gimel.
Earlier, yeah. Well, we spoke about the
So Gimel, if you don't have enough money,
I think it was when we were talking about the kiddush by the day versus kiddush by night. Well, one of the things was if you could only afford wine or you could only afford bread, get the bread.
So Gimel, if you don't have enough money. You don't have enough money. Which do you use to prioritize? It's a whole.
Okay, but this has an additional piece of information here, because in that case, I only have wine or bread. So it says it's better to do with the bread. Here the question is, I do have wine, but it's pugum. Is it better?
But what I'm saying is, but that does highlight how by night bread is more of an option to make kiddush with than it is by day. That's what I'm saying.
Correct. Correct.
So again, so now when you have this wine that's somewhat not, it's not appropriate to make kiddush over. Okay, so then you make it on challah. That's totally a valid option.
An Eish Lavram Taka holds that way.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. I think that's where it's coming from, because that whole
right.
Okay, Mem Dalid.
Mem Dalid. Kol Mashaton. So he said everything that's required by a cup of benching is also required here. Hainu, meaning sheyakei shalim, that the cup should be whole. V'yiyah muda chetev mibifnim u'bechutz, and it should be washed well inside and outside. V'chol shar dvarim anizka la'el b'simin kuf pei gimel, in case b'chzamazin, and all the other things mentioned above in 183 regarding the cup of benching. Then we said Amid, so the only thing he adds, so the thing he adds here, without going to Kufpei Gimel, is that it should be just like the cup of benching should be rinsed inside and out. So too the cup for kiddush should be rinsed inside and out well. Okay, so then we said, and he says Vayechulu standing up. Here's where it gets interesting. Shehu edus al bria shamayim va'aretz, because it is testimony on the creation of the heaven and the earth. We see Vayechulu. We're saying the part from Bereshis, right? That is for the first part of Bereshis talks about the 6 days of creation, and then right after the 6 days of creation, it says Vayechulu hashamayim va'aretz v'chol tzavam. And he finished the heavens and the earth and all their legions, etc. So that's talking about the finishing of the creation, which is Friday night. Which that's why we just had this in Ches, I think. That when you didn't make kiddush by night, and you're making up for it in the day, you would not say Vayechulu, because Vayechulu is specifically connected to the night, because that's when he finished the creation.
Yeah, the Ramah says it exactly. Yeah.
So this pasuk is a testimony on the creation of heaven and earth. The edus be'inan ma'umad, and like we learned in Hilchas Edus, is that witnesses must stand when they're giving testimony. V'afal pisha imli batfila. And even though he said it already in davening, you say Vayechulu, as we know, you say it 3 times. You say it twice in davening, right? You say once during Amidah, during Shemoneh Esrei, once afterwards, after Amidah, when everybody's finished the Amidah, then you go and you say it as part of the Birchas Mein Sheva, after the Amidah before Aleinu, and then now you're saying it the 3rd time by Kiddush. So even though he already said it in the davening, Chayzir va'amrei kedei lahetzi banov of nevesei, he goes back and says it again to make sure that he fulfills the obligation of his children and the children of his household.
Right, so not so much that you have to say it 3 times, but it's more so that you can cover other people.
Yeah, so far.
I'm saying according to the Torah.
Yeah.
I'm saying making that distinction. The Torah seems to say that's why. That's because of you, but because so for other people.
Right.
Contrast that with the Keach.
And he actually didn't mention that you said it twice already. He just mentions you said it in Shul. Even though
you say it at home.
Obviously we know that you say it twice, but yeah. Over the Keach, and the Keach brings in the name of the Medrash the tzarich leimar vayechulu shalish pa'amim, that you must say vayechulu 3 times. Echad batfila, once during davening, ve'echad la'ar, meaning during Shemoneh Esrei, during the Amidah, ve'echad la'achar tefillah, once after Shemoneh Esrei, ve'echad ala case, and once on the cup. V'kosvu achareinim, and the achareinim wrote, the im shachach leimer vayechulu b'shas kiddush, that if you forgot to say it in the time of the kiddush, eimer be'emtza seuda al hakais, he would then he should take another cup and say you fill it with wine. He would say just vayichulu.
Yes, l'chaim. Say
Because-
vayichulu and l'chaim.
Yeah. So these achreinim feel that the 3 times is a very important thing.
Right. Not just stop to say it during the meal,
Right.
like as a zemer or whatever. Mama say it over a kais, and seemingly because it's a testimony, you got to stand up when you do it.
It would seem so. And the truth is, we do see that the other 2 times you stand as well. That during the Amida you're already standing, right?
Right, and then afterwards
you're supposed to specifically stand by saying Vayichulu. So we see that all 3 times we stand. I imagine there's no source or at least I don't know a source for this without looking further into it. But I would imagine if you forgot one of the preceding Vayichulus and you're in the middle of the meal, you would still say Vayichulu, but you wouldn't say it with the cup because it seems like your requirement to say it over a cup of wine is only 1 time. So you would probably just stand up and say Vayichulu again or something like that. But it sounds like to these achreinim, these particular achreinim, it's important that you don't miss one of the 3 times. Okay, and now the Rama, and I don't know if he brings it here, but there are opinions that it's not really Eidus and other things like that. We'll see how much he goes into that here. But the Rama says v'yachel lamed b'shas kiddush, and he's allowed to stand during kiddush. V'yeser teiv leishev, but it's better to sit. V'nei leishev, and the minhag is to sit down. Av b'shah she'emin vayichulu, even in the time that they say vayichulu. So he's saying not what the Mechaber said to stand up by it. He's saying the minhag is to sit down, and even in the time that you're saying vayichulu. But you start standing up a little bit. Lichved Hashem, in honor of the name, which I believe the Mishna will explain. What?
He's about to say. The Rama says.
Okay. Okay. Oh yeah. So Rama himself says it. Ki maschilim yem hashishi vayichulu hashamayim. Right, you start Yom Hashishi Vayichul Hashamayim, V'nirmais Hashem Berashi Tevis, and the name is hinted in the first letters of the words. Right, Yom is a Yud, and Hashishi is a Hey, and Vayichul is a Vav, and Hashamayim is a Hey, is the 4 letters of the ineffable name of Hashem.
The Tetragrammaton.
Yeah. The
Tetragrammaton.
Grammar.
But that's how I always remember it. Tetragrammaton. Tetragrammaton.
It's a very well-spoken robot that plays Tetris.
it's the new AI. It's the new Tetris AI.
It's the original AI.
There you go. Shem Havaya, the original
That's
AI.
the original.
The OG AI.
That's the original programming.
Right.
You know,
Havaya, especially want to get really deep in the fact that the Eibusher decided to make the world out of mercy in the end. So that's Shem Havaya.
Right.
If we really want to get into Kabbalistic,
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
Oh, Kishamaschil, when he starts Yitain Einov Banedis, when he begins to make Kiddush, he should look at the candles. Ubishas HaKiddush B'Kais, and during the time of Kiddush, he should look at the cup, meaning at the wine in the cup.
If you're really fancy, when you look at the wine in the cup, you'll look at the reflection of the candles in the wine of your cup. No.
Or for many of us, you would try to look at the reflection of your siddur in the cup of wine.
There you go.
And so seems to me to be the right thing to do. Ayin El Simikov Begimel, C 183 Sivdalit, subsection 4. Okay, so now into the
back
Mishna,
to Memvav,
which Bichlal, the way it's done today is you look at the wine, you look at the cup, but then if you need your siddur and you're not going to remember the words without, and you're going to jumble over the kiddush without looking at the siddur, then after you look in the wine, go ahead and look in the siddur. You don't have to look.
Which I see. People will pause. They don't look while they're saying that. You'll see. I mean, there are many people that do look while they're saying, but you see there are many people, even people that know it by heart, but that want to be very careful to always look inside when they're davening. They'll pause, look at the candles, and then look back to the siddur yeh mashishi, and then same thing by the grape juice. Savri maranan in the siddur. Look at the grape juice. Like
So looking at the wine, it doesn't mean you have to take your eyeball out of its socket and stick it into the cup. It means you should look at the wine, but also use your siddur accordingly as needed.
I remember, I have to say, just to segue and bring up another halach with regards to tzitzis by Uri Isa, by in Shema, to look at the tzitzis strings. I remember someone was saying, you have to look at the words though, with looking at your tzitzis string. So maybe just pause, look at them, and then look back in the words. But to me, honestly, I never saw it. That one I felt was much easier, especially once I started wearing a talus. So there's a lot more bandwidth, a lot more room for me to move my strings around. Just take your strings. I'm still holding the knots by my heart, but the strings are long enough that I put them on the words and I use them to point to the words I'm looking at. I'm looking at the words and my strings.
And your strings. So the truth is that's actually not a bad answer in this case. Because
here,
once you have a big siddur, right? The many benches
kind of.
So you can hold your cup and hold your bencher, and you can really see both.
Yeah, it's in your peripheral vision. It's in your.
Just don't try pointing with the becher. You might get a little messy, but you can see both.
Right. But your focus is on the letters, but the wine is still well within view. You're still looking in its direction, and you're Anyway, just stop. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so now Memvav, talking about sitting. So it's not a minute, but
he says and it's better to sit because in this case, when you're sitting, it's more so called making kiddush in the place of the meal. Being that he's sitting in the place of his meal during kiddush. And so the Be'er Gira agreed with this. So from a different reason. In other words, he holds the same that you should sit, but not because it's more being keveh being b'makim suda, but rather for the reason the kevan she'echad peter chaveidai, that since one person is absolving his friend, meaning he is fulfilling his friend's obligation, being yaitza him for kiddush, but in kvius he needs how do you say kvius, like being planted in one place, being how do you say permanence, sort of.
Yeah, permanence is a good word.
Sheyikbu yachad, that they should set it together, basically, right? Over yeshiva mikri kvius, and when they are sitting, it's called kvius. It's called sort of setting it.
It's called status. The status of one group.
The what? You need status
is the word you use.
Okay.
So, for example, sitting together gives them the status of one group, as above in 167.
And like we had it like before in 167, and according to his words, also those who are being yaitza would need to sit down as well, not just the person making kiddush. And you should, in the first place, it's better to be careful to be careful on this. And it would seem that even according to his opinion, this is only in the first, like ideally, but meaning if you didn't, it's not that they weren't yaitz from the kiddush if they weren't sitting, but it's better since they're being yaitz from the kiddush that you should be sitting and they should be sitting.
So Kiddush Makom Suda, because of Kiddush Makom Suda, basically. So now, however, it might be said.
But at the very least, the those who are being yaitz Kiddush, they should be careful to set themselves together at the time of the Kiddush, meaning they should be like looking like a group, so to speak.
Together.
Yeah. Basically, let's say in order to be yaitz, for the obligation to be fulfilled, the loishim mufuzarim umufeirodim. Right, they shouldn't be scattered and separated. And they're going one here and one there, all helter skelter.
You'll love how they translate this. They write, not to be dispersed or scattered about, walking hither and thither.
Oh, I like that even better. What did I use? I used something else. I used the El Helter Skelter, but hither and thither
is Skelter. That's what you remind me.
Hither and thither. That's the Zele Mikri Kviyas Klal, because this is not considered being set in a group at all.
Right.
Af b'shav v'chulu. So 1 second. So he says that the minhag is to sit down even by vayechulu. The Kevan Shamaru Kavar Beveisa Knesses Mu'umad, since he already said it's standing in the shul, Ein Makpidim Shuv Alze. We're not careful about this anymore. The Eimrim Eisim Meyushav Kameshara Kiddush, and you say it's sitting like the rest of Kiddush. Please note, this is not everybody's minhag to do. What the Rama is saying here. Which again, when we I'd say I don't know, because it could be that the Eidus Mizrach have different minhagim in this, and the Sfaidim have different minhagim in this, and whatever it is. When we get to the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, along with the notes about Ma'aseh B'Poel, so then we'll discuss that. Right. So at this point, just remember, this is a hypothetical discussion. And both of these and all these different opinions right now that we're discussing hither or thither are just for the just for knowledge of the klolim, of the general ideas. And either when we get to the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, if it's obvious what to do from there, then great. And if not, ask your local rabbi. And if you follow another minhag that's not other than minhag Chabad, then ask your local rabbi as to your. And by the way, even in Chabad, I've seen different minhagim.
With regards to Friday night?
No. With regards to Shabbos day.
Yeah, that I've seen.
By Shabbos night, I've widely seen that everybody stands, and not just for Vayichulu, but for the whole Kiddush. That's the most widely accepted.
You're saying even from Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, yeah, and then for Eishes Chayil, I've seen two things: some who sit during Dafka, who sit during Eishes Chayil, and some who stand during Eishes Chayil.
I've never seen sitting. That's interesting.
Yeah, and then you stand for Kiddush, the whole Kiddush. During the day, some stand and some sit, and they just get up when they went by Zchiras Hashem, when they say Hashem's name. You get up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't remember where exactly I get this from. It's kind of one of those things where I learned it somewhere, and I don't right off the top of my head right now. We'll get back and we'll review the sugya, and it'll come back to me. But basically, I have a custom where I'll sit, but then both by Al Kain, as well as then again by Baruch Atah Hashem, and I'll lift myself off the chair. But also by the Al Kain, you do the word by Al Kain
or by Hashem, by the Shem Hashem and Al Kain.
I mean, B'chalal, I think it's probably Shem Hashem in Al Kain, and then again by Baruch Atah Hashem. Yeah, Al Kain Hashem, and then Baruch Atah Hashem.
That's That's what I do too, not because I really remember why, but because that's the minhag as I've seen it, and
But I think it's more.
as
But
my elders
I
have done
think
it for me. So
yeah. But I think that minhag, at least where I get it from, is a combination. It's a little bit of halacha, but it's also a big part of it is minhag adopted from what I was seen that
right.
my Rebbe did. But what my Rebbe did was actually more. It was reliance, as far as I understand it, halachically, more reliance on a more of a kula to um as a kindness to those in the crowd. Basically, by Shabbos day,
Why?
according to our how we paskin,
Because if he would stand up, everybody would stand up.
everyone would have to stand. There were people who would be very difficult for them to stand for the kiddush.
Right.
So that by sitting allowed that other people could sit. And so growing up, that's how I saw Rabbi Ferris do it, and my father do it, or whatever. And I think they got that from the Rebbe doing it, and especially Rabbi Ferris, being in a Chabad house and being in a place made it easier for people. So not to force everyone to stand up, so they did it that way. And so that's the way I adopted it as well. And even then later, learning the halachas, where okay, maybe it's better actually to stand. But I'm like, you know what? I like that concept. Let people, especially Shabbos day, if they're coming home from shul, long walks. It's just a different Friday night. It seems easier for people to be standing the whole time. Even the talk about Shalom Aleichem Shchai, they could sit. Like I let my kids sit for Shalom Aleichem Shchai. Okay, my kiddush tell them, okay, stand up. It's kiddush time. It's. But anyway, we'll clarify those halachas more as we go along.
I don't even necessarily call them out to the table when I say Shalom Aleichem. I mean, they can hear me. I'm saying Shalom Aleichem, but I'm not gonna. I don't harass them to come. But then when it comes time for Kiddush, and this is part of it also, because you have to, if you're being Yotze, you have to be part of the Kvutza. So I won't start Kiddush until everybody's at the table.
Right. Like you're saying right here, they have to be.
Usually.
They can't be hither to thither.
Yeah. No hither tither. Exactly. You can't be hither and tither and helter and skelter. So, af b'sha'ah v'chulu the kivut shemarog kor b'sek knesset mu'amad ein al-kiddush v'alzeh v'emes miyushu k'mei shar kiddush. And since you already said it standing in shul v'yichulu, so there's no need, according to the Ramah, again to say it standing again. Yitein einav barneir. You put your eyeballs on the candle in the beginning of kiddush. Segulas refuah l'inayim. This is how do you say a segula? Like a good forget how do you say a segula? It's a lucky thing. Ich weiß. I'm not sure there's a word for it. It's a better word than that. But for healing of the eyes,
He calls it a remedy, but like a good luck charm is usually what I understood. But yeah, but I think in this case it's specifically a remedy because of what he says next.
right? The inayim shekohu al yedei pesia gasa. For eyes that kohu is like they became darkened, right?
Dimmed, yeah.
Yeah, dimmed. What's pesia gasa?
Broad steps. If you're walking with two broad steps, so Gemara Shabbos Kufyud Gimel Beis says walking with very broad steps takes away 1/5 of one's 1/500th. Excuse me, not 1/5. Thank God, only 1/500th, but still it takes 1/500th of one's eyesight. So
Wow.
so by looking at the kiddush at the lights, excuse me, it can bring back the eyesight.
On the
And I
bright
think there's a
side,
Rebbe story too about this. Huh?
on the bright side, it's been years since I've been able to walk with broad steps. So
There you go. But no, I think there's a story to the Rebbe where like somebody had different eyes. The Rebbe said you should be more machmir, especially by Havdalah, I think, or something like be extra careful to make or I think the Rebbe said make your own kiddush, which that meant the guy was then looking because
which is but and interestingly, Bichlal and Chabad, this is the minhag to do this, which is interesting in light that the next thing he says is ein medaktikin bozeh kol kach. That according to Eliyarabba, we don't. We're not that particular about that, but actually, that's what I do before Kiddush, and I've seen it very widely done in Chabad, at least. That you look at you look at the candles before, and perhaps lav dafke so much for the eye remedy. I wonder if maybe there's other reasonings behind it also.
yeah, I remember hearing someone. I don't know where I saw this. Maybe we'll get up to it, but that some people even say it again. Look at again by when they say the bracha of Mekadesh Shabbos, because it's Indian of sanctifying the Shabbos. So where are you Mekadesh Shabbos? Where's a perfect example? The cup of wine and the candles. So I heard someone said, yeah, by Mekadesh Shabbos, they look at the lights again and the cup again.
Yeah.
So basically, there's
And
like twice you're doing it. Basically, you're starting off Yom Hashishi, look at the lights. By your Priya Gafen, you look
I
at your
have seen
cup. That consider, and then by Mekadesh Shabbos, lights and cup again, because
Right.
that's the Mekadesh. Like, but then, yeah.
I have seen people do that.
So I don't know if that's we'll see that actually has a marmakim or if it's more
Right, that's what's interesting.
adopted minhag because it seems
Right.
nice.
Right. Like for example, because his Zayda was doing it. When he went to visit his Zayda was doing it. Yeah, because one of the candles was smoking, so he like glanced over.
What's that?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Pardon my French.
It's like the L'chaim by Savrim Maram L'chaim, right? So by him, so in their house the minute became Savrim Maran. What's that?
By the way, Stav is a cute story. Quick cute story. There was growing up. There was another local shliach, one of their daughters. Again, you grew up in a Chabad house. A lot of people, when the rabbi would make kiddush, a lot of people would call it l'chaim. It was fun. So one of the girls really liked that and would do it well into her teen years. And at a certain point, she had a brother. One of her sisters got married, and her brother-in-law was one of these people very stickler for halacha. Would call everything out, give everyone a hard time for it. He got better over time, but
he got better. He got cured a little bit. Yeah, his
got better.
His wife, no doubt, helped with that.
yeah, definitely. But I say,
a wife is a school to cure sticklerness.
It's very, very beneficial. Definitely a good salve. Anyway, so he came over to her and said, like, you can't do that. You're not Sephardi. You can't be saying that. She's like, well, maybe I'll marry a Sephardi guy. He's like, well, you're not Sephardi now. And Taka, she ended up marrying a Sephardi Baltruva to Lubavitch. She's a Lubavitcher.
Interestingly, in my house, that's the minhag. We say l'chaim.
Interesting. From your side or your wife's side?
Not from my wife's side.
I'm saying from the Markel side.
Yeah,
did you grow up with it also?
My side. I can't remember where it started or what's. I mean, first of all, my father technically is half Sephardic, so maybe we can get away with it like that.
No, what I'm saying is, did you grow up with it, or did it start with your generation?
I think it's my father's house. I don't actually remember when it started or what's it called. I just know that's we've done it for many years like that, and we say l'chaim by Yisrael. In the daytime, it really makes sense because chances are we're actually holding a l'chaim while we're.
There you go. Okay. Well, we'll get to it and see if we've been breaking halacha this whole time or whether it's kosher.
Yeah. Right. Or if I'm like on thin ice, relying on a yesh misha yismech because because somewhere in in Beis Yosef he mentions place aminagum. No, but I mean the Sfardim do it actually. So
right. So you could always just rely on the fact that you do have Sephardi blood.
I actually do have Sephardi, yeah. So
lineage. Okay.
So
Memtes.
In the El Simin Kuf Pei Gimel. See before in 183. Hainu the Shamaveir, meaning that there it's explained. Zeh sheyitin einov b'keishel bracha. This that he should put his eyes on the cup of blessings.
While he makes the bracha on the cup of wine, so he should,
that he shouldn't. What was the word used for yasir daite? He shouldn't like remove his thought from it. That it shouldn't.
He just says distract his attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he should be thinking about the wine by the kiddush. He's making the wine on this kiddush.
Yeah, and he shouldn't be thinking about the flickering candle. Focus on the wine right now. Now's the time to focus on the wine.
Now to the Mechaber Yud Aleph. Im ein lo elo keis echad. If somebody only has one cup of wine, mekadesh bei balayla, he would make the kiddush on it during the night. The einei tayim mimenu, but he would not drink from it. Shelo yafgimenu, so that he wouldn't make it pagum. Ella sheifich mimenu lekes acher, but rather he pours it. Which, by the way, this is a clear thing that the wine in the bottle that was open is not would not be pogum.
Would not be pogum.
Would absolutely not be because based on what he's telling you to do here, that means you're using it. He's giving you this eitzah, so it shouldn't be pogum. But wait, you actually made kiddush on it.
So straight up allowed to make kiddush not only on wine that was out during kiddush, but literally on wine that kiddush was made over.
Right, you mamish intentionally made kiddush on this cup.
Right, you just didn't drink from it.
Right, the pogum is the problem. That's what makes it pogum.
Right.
But he pours from it into a second cup, and then he tastes from the wine of kiddush from the second cup. And the next day he will be make kiddush on what's remaining in the first cup. If remembering what we said a couple of sifim ago, that it should be full, but if it's not full, at least if there's a revius left in it, it's still okay. So in this case, obviously, since he poured a little bit of it into another cup, so obviously it's not going to be a full cup. But as long as he has a revius in there, you can still make kiddush on it. However, what happens if you only had a how do you say b'tzimtzum, like a bare minimum revius? He had a not a hair over a revius. This is different. He's not
precise.
saying
you're right. Contain only a precise revius.
Right. He's saying what if let's say what was left over was exactly a revius.
Right.
I have
so in our, to connect it with what we were talking about before about there's different opinions. So let's say it was exactly the minimum amount. Let's say it's exactly 2.7.
Right.
So there's no one else to rely on if it's less than that. You know,
right, exactly. The nechsad mimenu balayla, and some of it during the night evaporated. Meizge lemachar lehashlimay lerevius. He pours it.
No. I think what he's saying. I think what he's saying is if lichatchila the cup you made kiddush on only had a revius, and now you're gonna drink some, it's gonna be less than a revius. You're gonna pour out some and drink from it. Now it's gonna be less than a revius. So Shabbos morning you could dilute what's left in the cup to make a revius.
Okay, that works also. But it sounds to me like he's saying, let's say you have. You drank your night kiddush, and now you poured it into another little.
You're saying what was left was only
and what's left
and
is
it only evaporated.
At night, a tiny, but it's exactly your mamish, exactly your revius, and at night, especially let's say it's a summer night.
I guess it doesn't make a difference.
Either way,
it doesn't make a difference.
Right,
Lemaisa, what you find in the morning, you measure, which is a good thing. Make sure you measure because you never know who came in the night, took a little extra sip. Your alcoholic 4-year-old or whatever.
Then you have another problem because now you have a problem. Anyway.
But basically, yeah. So you come back and you find that all that was left is
what's now left. Yeah. So he pours into it to complete.
So you're allowed to dilute it with water, which, by the way, you have to be very careful about in modern day, like grape juices, where if it's made from concentrate and stuff, where they're taking it out and adding water back in. So sometimes it's just barely kosher for kiddush as it is. If you're going to add any more water, it could make it now shahakal.
Right. It's not right. We're not if it's not
pure grape juice. It's already been diluted. That's why even something there's a hechsher that says kosher for the Ira and for kiddush gans shana, meaning it could be that basically there was water added, but it's not so much that it makes it shahakal. It's still hagaf and it's still kosher for kiddush.
Now you add a little more water to it, no problem.
Could be a problem. So with this eitzah really works only if you know for sure, if you know for sure the measurements. Meaning if it's your average bottle of wine, they don't really make wine that way. They're not adding water. So I don't think you'd have to worry. But if you're doing if it's grape juice or whatever, you have a shaila. You got to make sure you know your grape juice. Make sure that you can add water.
Sugar or something like that, but
what?
Depending on the wine, they possibly add sugar. But
the sugars and the water. But the way the sugar dissolves into the wine, I don't know if that counts towards the count, even though it's a large amount of sugar.
Meaning
I don't
is
know
it
if that dilutes it.
Yeah.
It's considered dilution, but the water definitely I know is just yeah. So it's a cool whatchamacallit, but make sure if it ever comes up.
Make sure to think about it when you're doing it.
Yeah.
Hainu and all of this This is only assuming he has another cup for Havdalah. She'im leikein, that if not so, if he does not have another cup of wine for Havdalah, mutav she'anichenu Havdalah, she'i efshar bepas. Better you keep it the wine for Havdalah that Havdalah you're not able to make on bread. Whereas Kiddush you can make on bread. Rather than making Kiddush, and he will not have remaining wine for Havdalah.
And I guess we're talking about if he also doesn't have any Chmar Medina. So Havdalah could be very easily even like Lechatchila Chmar Medina.
Because in other words, and especially if you look at his reasoning, is because you cannot make Havdalah on bread. So if you have something you can make Havdalah on, you don't have that problem.
Right.
Yeah, so that would seem to be implicit reasoning here as well. Now, let's say after he pours off, right? After he pours off his amount the little bit that he's going to drink in the night. Wait, what's he talking about here?
So you basically you have left if you have after dilution. So after dilution,
after you dilute it with water.
Yeah. So now what you have is 2 cups that have exactly revius.
Right. So now if you are able to dilute it into.
It's 2 separate cups.
2 revius
each.
And revius each are in the right. 2 revius and while retaining its hagafen quality.
Right.
That you kaddish balayla be'achad. He should make kiddush at night with 1 revius.
With 1 cup.
And he should make Havdalah on the second one. And he won't make Kiddush on the day, or he'll make it on bread if he has bread, obviously.
Right.
The Kiddush halayla adif, that the Kiddush for the night is more important. Now it goes without saying if you don't have 2 mitzumtzamim, but rather you have 2 reviusin and a little bit, that you would do like we said before. You would make the Kiddush. You would 1 revius. You would put aside for Havdalah, and the other revius and the little bit you would make Kiddush on it, pour off the tiny bit, drink just that from a second cup, and leave the first cup for the day, and then you would be fine. But that only works if you have a little. If after dilution you have a little bit more than 2 reviusin. If you only have exactly 2 reviusin, then that's what we're talking about.
You need to drink revius, making the bracha agafen. That's the problem.
Right. So it's actually a funny case. Yeah, but he says in the other, what do you call it? In the beginning, he doesn't. He implies you just pour off a tiny bit. He says yitayim mizeh. You just taste from it without drinking the revius, and you leave the revius for tomorrow.
You're saying in an earlier sif?
In the beginning of this sif. Im einli elokais echad. Mekadish by balayla ve'ein tayim imeno. Shleif give el shleif imeno lis achad ve'tayim yain shel kiddush.
Beginning of the sif is just stop. You have a regular cup.
The Magen Avram agrees with that, so it says what you're saying. Okay, so let's get into
Mishnah Berura.
Okay, but there's all Meloi Lugmav, he says. So basically, ideally you should have revius, but the Chalafach you should have the cheek full. He's never seen my cheeks. My cheeks are bigger than Revius.
Which I think we're going to get into later. Yeah,
Yeah,
to
what
see Gimel.
exactly are all
What's
these
the Malay
shiurim?
Lugmov?
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, let's go to the Mishnah Berura. Sheifich mimenu. So he should pour from it. Oh, here, Kishir Malay Lugmov.
Yeah.
Look at that. Like Malay Lugmov, and the Shartzian says the Pachis Mizela Yotza, because less than Malay Lugmov, less than a full cheek, you don't fulfill your obligation.
Yeah. And I picked ahead at Yud Gimel. Malay Lugmov, the Mechaber says, is the greater part. Ruba Isha Revius. So
Right.
so it's like mostly Revius. So yeah, if you're not really having Revius.
And here's what's interesting. And Taisvis says that also. But
right, and now from the second
the Ilya Rabba mistapik, and the Ilya Rabba has he questions this. The Kavan Dereitza she Yishar L'Machal Kiddush, since he should have remaining for Kiddush. B'di'eved dai b'kolshehu. B'di'eved, right? If you have no other choice, even without a full cheek, you're a yaitza, even with any amount at all. And the Shartzian says he doesn't. He's not seeing this at all. He's not. He says sorry, Ilya Rabba, but I ain't seeing it. And also, and he brings other places where it writes specifically a cheekful. So this would seem to be the even though Ilya Rabba suggests that if he doesn't have enough for a full cheek, he should then just pour a tiny bit less than that, even less than that, any amount. But it seems that in general that's not the going thingamajiggy. Meha case hasheni, right? So he pours it and then he drinks, and then when he drinks the kiddush, he drinks from the second cup. Over Magen Avram hiskim l'dasa Teisvis, and in Magen Avram he agreed to the opinion of Teisvis. The case shel cheva, that a cup of obligation tzarich liis at'ima davka mikeish yesh be'revi'is yayin. That the cup the tasting has to be from a cup that has a revius in it. And therefore it's correct that he should do as follows. Yishbech mitchila me'akes harishin case acher. He should pour from the first cup into a second cup. And he should be careful that it should remain in the first cup, a revius, meaning he's pouring whatever amount it is into the second cup, right? And then he's being careful that the remains in the cup he made kiddush on a revius. And then he should drink the cheekfuls, the cheekful of the wine from the original cup he made kiddush on, right after pouring some of it off to a second cup. And then he should, but now the problem is it's pagum. So then you take from the other wine and you poured off and you pour back into here, so it makes it now not pagum anymore. Niskan pigimasi, that to this he fixed it's being pagum. And like before in 182:6. And he can make kiddush on it if it has a revius of wine. Now, so even though Ilya Rabba holds that we should do what it says in the Mechaber, right? And the Mechaber says pour enough to fill the cheek into a second cup and drink from the second cup. but that creates a problem according to Teisvis, that you have to be your cheekful has to come from a cup that has a revius in it. So therefore, the Magen Avram holds, and the Mishnah Berura is saying that we hold by the Magen Avram in this, is that you pour just a little bit into the second cup, drink your making sure to retain a revius in the first cup, and then from that first cup with a revius still in it, you drink the cheekful, and then you add back, which means obviously you have to have poured into the second cup at least a cheekful's worth, because you're going to have to make up that cheekful to be well, I guess depending on how close you were to a revius. And then after you drink the cheekful from the first cup, you pour back from the second cup that was not drinking from back into the first cup. Mekadesh b'masha nishar. So going back where the Mechaber said that the next day you make kiddush on what was remaining. Miloshin zeh, from his wording, mashma, it implies the mekadesh b'zeh akeiz gufa. It implies that you make kiddush from this cup itself. And even though before in Sif Yud, because of the tzarech liyis akeiz mali, it says that he has to have a full cup. Right? Hang on a second. What do you mean you drink from this same? Meaning, what he's saying is it implies that you don't transfer it to a smaller cup in order it should be full, but you're making it from that cup. He says, hang on a second, I thought we said you have to have a full cup. Isn't that one of the requirements? Right? The Zehu rak le mitzvah. This is only, I'm guessing here he doesn't mean just for the commandment. I'm guessing he means this is like the ideal way of doing the mitzvah.
Manner.
What?
That is only a preferred manner for filming the mitzvah.
Right. So in other words, his wording, he says this is only for the mitzvah. But yeah, that makes sense. That's what he means. Is this is the ideal way to do it. But if he doesn't have it, doesn't hold back from his
no full cup. It does not disqualify.
Right. However, it's obvious that if he does have another cup that's smaller, so in other words, if he has another cup that's a smaller cup that's a revius, that if he pours it in, it'll be full. So clearly, that's the preferred thing you should do. He's talking.
So it pays to have some shot glasses.
You don't have such a cup, and this is it. This is what you have. So go ahead and make the kiddush, and you were yaitz it. Right. You fulfilled the obligation.
So it's a good idea to have a shot glasses around just in case something like this ever happens.
Well, yes and no, but you have to make sure, because in other words, it's funny because it goes the other way also. If you have a smaller glass, right, but you have to make sure that glass is a revius too.
Right.
That's right. So
I have a shot glass that's a measuring cup.
Yeah.
So it's also for so even in the shot glass, there's different lines and it says how many ounces it is. I guess for cooking or whatever, but it's also a shot glass, so you can kind of see how much you're drinking.
I know it's funny. We should do, what do you call it? We should make a glass, right? That's a revius, right? But the problem is whose revius you're gonna go by, and then it should have a line for Reiv case, a line for Malay Lugmov.
But that's what I was gonna say. You could have a cup that first of all, you could, if you make it out of rubber, you can fold it.
Like those camping, like those camping, those telescoping.
Yeah, exactly.
Telescoping camping. It's a different, right? Exactly. You want to go by Chaim? No, what do you want to go by?
So, but instead of look, each folding point is a different shear of revius.
Shita of revius.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think we have a whole. I think we've just come up with a whole line of products that will only result in a minimal financial loss.
Only a minimal loss.
Right. It's a no-brainer.
With the right marketing,
Yeah,
we'll only lose.
I don't know. Obviously, yeah, with the right marketing and a lot of work and things.
And a lot of work. We'll only lose 12 million a quarter.
It'll result in only a minimal loss. No, I honestly, I think what's it called? I think for like just under 10,000, we could have our dream and live with it too.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. Anywho. Revius b'tzimtzum. But if you only have exactly a revius, lav dafka, not necessarily exactly a revius. Elahu hadin im afilu yesh le'yesem mizeh. The same would apply if he has more than an exact revius, right? Ella the achat imas lugmav lo yishayer. But after, like we just said, that we don't go by the Eli Rabbi suggestion that you could have a kol shehu, that you could have any amount. Rather, you have to have a malay lugmav. You have to have the cheekful. So the same would apply if once you have the cheekful, you wouldn't have enough left for revius, because without the cheekful, you weren't yaitza. So therefore, you're gonna have to remove from this at least a cheekful. So if after that cheekful you don't have enough left for revius, same deal.
Right. And so why say some revius? He continues.
Oh, I should probably continue then too, huh? It's in your side for to continue.
I'm prompting you to, and so now.
Ella the nakatachi lirevusa. But he was talking here like to add the afilu b'zeh yeshitakana al yidei mizigas mayim, that even in other words, it's, I guess you can say it's a fortiori.
Even in such a case, even where it's exactly what it is.
Right, it's a fortiori. It's a kal v'chemer. So if in a case where you had exactly a revius, it works. So obviously, if you have a little bit more, it also works.
Oh, and now he brings up what I brought up before, which is
that even by this you can fix it by pouring a little bit of water. Almighty, and we're talking about kishayayin chazak, when it's a strong wine. That like you were saying before, that bear in mind that if that you have to be aware of is there, has there already been a dilution prior to this, Have the big corporations already diluted your wine for their own greedy financial gain?
Tuna Kudes on this. I just finished on Pesach the last jugs of the moonshine wine from Chaim Reisner, Olav Shalom. Mm-hmm. He passed away. I helped the kids clear out some things in the house, Svarim and different things. A lot of which was all his bottles of his homemade wine.
Did it get stronger over time?
Oh my gosh, yes. And so I used to mix it sometimes with other wines or whatever. But then Lamaisa, I had these bottles. I'm like, oh my, this stuff is getting rough. And so then I used it to cook. I used it as cooking wine for the roasts and everything over Pesach. It was very nice. But yeah, so I used to think of that. I'm like, Taka, this is a pure wine. I mean, he was allergic to sulfites. That's why he made it.
Right.
But like, I could probably add water to this. I could probably add, like triple the water and still be fine. I never did Lamaisa, but yeah, I used to add it. I used to have like 1/8 of Chaim Reisner wine and then 7/8 of Bartanura.
Yeah.
And then it would be a nice red wine.
Do you still make wine?
No, it wasn't him. It was Chaim Reisner who made wine.
I know he did. I know he did.
Yeah.
So
I myself don't, but I have friends who do.
Oh, so you never made it yourself? I thought you made it yourself.
No, he had Chaim Reisner's wine.
I had bottles of Chaim Reisner's wine.
I see. Wow, how much did you must have had a lot in stock.
Yeah. I've been going through it since he passed away. It's a couple of years now.
Oh, so you stocked up and you would create your own wine from his as the base. I see.
I kind of did the way because it was necessary. I couldn't drink. I tried. There were a couple times a Havdalah here or whatever where I drank a full cup of his stuff, and it would knock me flat on my whatever. I just have to sit down, and my head would be spinning. But yeah, on the same note, when I was in yeshiva in L.A., we got very close to a local guy, Russian Yid who owned a liquor store, and he gave us a bottle of like lab ready alcohol, which was like this 99%, 100% proof or whatever alcohol that then we filled up a little water bottle of it, and we brought it back to our dorm. And when we'd have like little dorm Fabrengens, we'd basically pour a little bit from that bottle into like a pitcher of water, mix it up, and then it was like a bottle of Smirnoff.
Wow.
It was like a 98% alcohol. It was some crazy like percentage. But yeah, you mix a little bit of that with water, and it tasted like a 40%, Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
so there he's saying, and that's specifically when you have Havdalah wine. What is specifically when you have Havdalah wine? It's talking about going not just the last thing he said, but going all the way back to the beginning, that if you only have one single cup, let's say you only mamish have one single cup, and you don't even and you're not going to have left for the day, even that you should leave it for Havdalah. Again, assuming you don't have something else that you can make Havdalah on. Why? Because Kiddush also in the night and also in the day, you can technically make Kiddush on bread. But Havdalah, you're not going to be able to make on the bread. So unless you have something else, you can make the Kiddush, you can make the Havdalah on.
Meaning halachically,
by the way, this should be a very rare situation. I can't imagine, unless you're like in a survival
hotel room. Today's day and age, you get stuck somewhere for Shabbos. Sometimes you go to hotel rooms, or even not stuck. The people, when they bring stuff for like a Shabbaton.
You're telling me you can't find beer. You're not going to be able to find. By the way, most hotels you can buy beer in the hotel.
Buying beer on Shabbos could be problematic.
See, first of all,
we're talking. I'm saying come Shabbos.
Let's say it's before
Shabbaton.
Let's say it's
hold on. No, but we're talking about Shabbos. I'm saying it's very easy and very realistic to come Shabbos and we forgot the other case of wine in the car, or whatever. We forgot to bring it in.
That's fine, but in other words, again, this whole thing is only assuming you're not going to have what to make Havdalah on. So example, if you know that there's going to be something else you can make Havdalah on available after Shabbos to make Havdalah, in that case, so you would not leave the wine and make Kiddush on bread, but then you would go into this emergency pour-off plan.
Okay. The hotel was not the best example, but I was in this situation like this a couple years ago when I did a Chalav Yisrael run as a mashkiach.
Yeah,
and you're in the middle of the Olympics. I was in an RV in the middle of a farm for Shabbos. Me and one other kid.
So by the way.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
What do you mean by I know what Chalav Yisrael is. What's a Chalav Yisrael run? What did you have to do?
Meaning he was the mashkiach for the Chalav Yisrael dairy run.
We had to be on the farm for the milking.
Okay.
So we had to be there 24 hours a day.
So what was
cows get run?
What was the problem? You couldn't. Wow, that's a lot. You had to be there for 2 weeks, 24 hours.
In such a case, if you forgot your wine,
I spent Shabbos there in the RV on the farm.
Right, there's nowhere you're finding kosher wine near there.
And this was not like a homesteader's farm. This is a big corporate farm. So no one's, it's not like there's a farmhouse and there's Papa Joe who lives on the farm. No, it was me and one other Yid in an RV, and any other human would not have been walkable within a shot.
So by the way, but that itself, you're confirming what I said. Because that in itself is an exception from the rule situation in the first place. And now in that self situation, What are the chances that you brought exactly a revius of wine and not a second revius of wine?
I'm saying you're right. It's an exception, but it's not so impossible to say that never happens. That's all. That's my point.
I didn't say it never happens. I'm saying it's a case that would be very uncommon to happen.
It is unique, but I'm saying I think these kinds of things happen more often than we might think with people when they travel and they go out of town and they go to places.
By the way,
situations.
I'm only talking about the thing with the challah. And I mean, sorry, the thing with Havdalah, because I can see, in other words, even if you're not, even in sometimes in a regular situation,
you're just at home.
This is the wine you have. You can't buy more wine on Shabbos, so unless you can figure out, and if you're at a place with no eruv, I don't know if your neighbor has wine, it still don't help you.
Right.
I mean, you can
absolutely. It's only the Havdalah thing, because otherwise you can Matzah Shabbos before you make Havdalah, just go drive somewhere and pick up some more wine or beer or anything to make Havdalah.
This shear is done and the other shear is starting.